Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wondered why the bustling oil towns of Nigeria's Delta state, once hives of activity, now seem so quiet? What happened to the big oil companies and why did they leave? This is the story of oil, conflict, and a great corporate retreat. It all began back in the late 1950s. After oil was first struck in Oloibiri, the Niger Delta quickly became the engine room of Nigeria's economy. Giants like Shell, Chevron, and Mobil flocked to the region, setting up shop to extract the black gold that would fuel the nation's finances. But there was a catch. While the rigs and pipelines were all over the Delta, the real power, the corporate headquarters, stayed far away in cities like Lagos and Port Harcourt. These places had better infrastructure, airports, and security, especially during the Nigerian Civil War. So from the very beginning, a physical and symbolic distance was created between the source of the wealth and the communities living on top of it. So what went wrong? Why did this promising industry turn into a source of conflict? It started with the environment. Decades of oil production led to devastating oil spills and constant gas flaring. This pollution poisoned farmland and fishing waters, destroying the traditional livelihoods of the local people. Imagine watching immense wealth being pumped out from under your feet, while your own land becomes barren and your water undrinkable. You'd be angry, right? This led to a deep sense of marginalization. Communities in Delta State felt completely shut out. They saw no jobs, no development, and had no say in decisions that were ruining their environment. The fancy corporate offices in distant cities became a symbol of this exclusion. It was only a matter of time before this frustration boiled over. By the late 90s and early 2000s, local youths began to fight back. Militant groups with names like the Niger Delta Avengers emerged. They started attacking pipelines, kidnapping foreign oil workers, and sabotaging facilities. Their goal was to demand a greater share of the oil wealth and more control over their own resources. These attacks made operating in the region incredibly risky and expensive for the oil companies. This escalating violence was the final straw. The cost of doing business in the Delta skyrocketed. Companies had to spend a fortune on security, hiring private guards, and even naval vessels just to protect their staff and assets. It was becoming unprofitable, so they began to pull back. Starting in the early 2000s, many firms moved their key administrative departments out of cities like Warri. Offices for finance, logistics, and procurement were relocated, mostly to Port Harcourt, Lagos, or Abuja. This was seen as a way to reduce their exposure to violence and keep their skilled workers. For the local communities, this was a devastating blow. It wasn't just about losing jobs. It was a symbolic abandonment. The towns that had grown and thrived around the oil industry began to decline. Then, in the last decade, a bigger global shift began. International giants like Shell, ExxonMobil, and TotalEnergies started selling off their onshore assets in Nigeria to local firms. They began focusing on deepwater offshore fields, which are far from communities and much easier to secure. The trend of oil majors leaving Nigeria wasn't a rumor. It was a strategic retreat driven by security risks and changing global energy priorities. What are the consequences of this exodus? For Delta State, the impact has been severe. The departure of oil companies led to massive job losses, especially for skilled middle and senior positions. This reduced family incomes and crippled local economies. Towns like Warri and Uheli, once service hubs, saw investment dry up, and worst of all, the environmental damage remains. The legacy of oil spills and pollution lingers, with much of the land and water still unremediated. For Nigeria as a whole, the consequences are also significant. The constant disruptions and reduced onshore production mean the country is pumping less oil than it could, which hurts its foreign exchange earnings. The federal government has also had to pour massive amounts of money into military operations just to try and secure the remaining pipelines. It's a costly and volatile situation for everyone. Of course, the government has tried to intervene. At one point, acting President Yemi Osinbajo ordered the oil companies to move their headquarters back to the Niger Delta. The idea was to bring them closer to the communities, foster accountability, and spread the economic benefits. But this directive largely failed. The companies resisted, citing the same old security and infrastructure concerns, and the order was never really enforced. More recently, legal reforms like the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 have been introduced. This law requires companies to contribute to host communities' development trusts and an abandonment fund. The goal is to ensure communities see direct benefits and that there is money set aside for environmental cleanup when facilities are decommissioned. Alongside this, security forces continue to launch operations to clamp down on militancy and pipeline vandalism, but the region remains a hotspot. So, is there any good news in all of this? Well, there are a few silver linings. Investment in deepwater offshore fields is continuing. While these projects are far from the communities, they still provide some jobs and support port cities. Another potential opportunity lies in the sale of assets to Nigerian companies. This could lead to more local ownership and perhaps management that is more in tune with community needs. However, the big question is whether these local firms will have the capacity and the will to meet high environmental and governance standards. The jury is still out on that one. So the big question remains, will the major oil companies ever return to the Delta? A full-scale return of corporate headquarters to towns like Warri seems highly unlikely in the near future. For that to happen, there would need to be a massive improvement in security, infrastructure, and governance. What's more likely is that the focus will remain on offshore fields, which are seen as a safer bet. We'll also probably see more local Nigerian firms taking over the onshore assets, raising new questions about responsibility and sustainability. For any real change to happen, a few things are essential. First, security and the rule of law must be firmly established. No company will invest where its people and property are not safe. Second, the region needs serious investment in basic infrastructure, roads, power, hospitals, and schools to make it an attractive place to live and work. And finally, the historical environmental damage needs to be addressed. Cleaning up old spills and properly compensating communities would go a long way toward rebuilding trust. The story of the oil industry in Delta State offers some powerful lessons. First, environmental and social responsibility are not optional. Companies can't just extract resources, pollute the land, and leave without consequences. The failure to clean up and make amends only breeds deeper mistrust and conflict. Second, development must be inclusive. Host communities have to see real, tangible benefits from the resources taken from their land. Otherwise, discontent will always simmer beneath the surface. And finally, government policies need to be consistent and enforceable. Simply issuing orders without the political will or a clear plan to back them up achieves very little. The future of the Niger Delta depends on learning from these hard-won lessons. It's a complex problem with no easy answers, but one that highlights the critical need for a more just and sustainable approach to resource extraction. Thanks for watching, and if you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the issues that shape our world.